Judge ordered a black general to give up her honor medal. What she did instead destroyed her career. Remove that decoration from your uniform immediately. This is a courtroom, not a military parade. Judge Thompson's voice boomed with the unyielding command he wielded over the bench for nearly 3 decades. His tone carried the authority of a man long accustomed to being obeyed, brooking no challenge. All eyes shifted to the tall, composed woman standing before him. Major General Patricia Washington, the first black woman in U.S. Army history to attain 3 stars, held her posture with the same steady confidence that had carried her through 23 years of service and 3 combat tours. The Medal of Honor gleamed modestly against her impeccable dress uniform. She was not there as an accused, nor even as a witness. Patricia had voluntarily come to support the grieving family of a fallen soldier who had died under her command, a 19-year-old hero who had saved 8 lives before making the ultimate sacrifice in Kandahar. His benefits were now being callously challenged over a bureaucratic loophole. Patricia's calm, resonant voice cut through the tension. "Your Honor," she began, with the controlled poise of someone who had survived things most people could not even imagine, "this medal is no ornament. It is a tribute to those who never came home. I wear it for them." Thompson, a 61-year-old career judge who had never worn a uniform or set foot in a war zone, sneered in open scorn. "I don't care what it represents. In my courtroom, I make the rules. Take it off, or you'll be removed for contempt." A quiet ripple of unease spread through the gallery, many of them veterans, as the words echoed through the chamber. Patricia had half expected something like this. She felt it in the judge's sneering pronunciation of her name during roll call, in the sideways looks from courthouse staff. She drew a breath, one hand resting gently over the medal, remembering every life behind that decoration. 23 years in uniform. 5 Valor Awards. Command of thousands of soldiers. And now, dismissed like a disruptive child by a civilian whose worst danger was probably a morning commute. "With the deepest respect," Patricia replied, her voice growing steelier, a tone that made several veterans in the audience unconsciously straighten. "This medal symbolizes sacrifices I doubt you fully comprehend." Something in her calm defiance seemed to drive a spike into Thompson's pride. Her quiet dignity, her earned authority, it was more than he could tolerate. In the back row, a silver-haired veteran stood up, rigid and silent. Then another. Soon 15 men and women rose together, a living testament to shared sacrifice. Their eyes were locked on the judge, challenging his arrogance. Patricia allowed herself the faintest of smiles. They did not know it, but every second of this display was being discreetly recorded by 3 separate cameras she had arranged beforehand. For 6 months, she had been documenting this judge's patterns of racial and personal bias, and today was the culmination of that painstaking preparation. Thompson's gavel cracked down like a rifle shot, splintering the tense silence. "Security. Remove her now. She will respect this court, or she will learn respect in jail." The courtroom's security officer, an Iraq veteran named Rodriguez, flinched at the command. He locked eyes with Patricia for a split second, struggling with his own conscience. "Your Honor, I'd rather not," he managed to say. Thompson's face turned a furious crimson. "I don't give a damn what you'd rather do. Either follow my orders or go find another job." Patricia did not move. Her hidden recording device, secured inside the collar of her uniform, captured every word. Every hateful glance. Every humiliating demand. The young widow beside her clutched her arm, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Please, General, just take it off," she whispered brokenly. "I can't lose you, too." Patricia placed a reassuring hand on the woman's shoulder. She felt the old, familiar weight of command, of duty, of responsibility that she had carried since the day she left Detroit at 18 to enlist, determined to carve out something better. "Mrs. Roberts," Patricia murmured, voice low and strong, "there are moments when backing down dishonors those who came before us." Thompson leaned forward, eyes burning with hatred. Something about this black woman, the way she refused to shrink, the way she met him eye to eye, it tore at the fragile shell of his self-importance. He was used to people knowing their place, and she refused to know hers. Across the aisle, corporate lawyer Jennifer Walsh was whispering frantically into her phone. "She still won't take it off," she reported. "No, sir, she does not look intimidated." "Maybe we should." A clipped voice on the other end barked the reply, "Proceed." "Break her." Thompson gave a cruel smile. Nearly 3 decades of subtle intimidation had taught him how to break the spirit of those he deemed troublesome, especially black men and women, without crossing any lines too obvious. He was a master of it, or so he believed. "This is your final warning," he snarled. "Remove that medal or be jailed for contempt. Spare me the military hero lectures. I know exactly what kind of people you are." A deep, loaded silence filled the room. Even the corporate attorneys had fallen quiet, tension knotting in their throats. In the second row, freelance journalist David Chun discreetly began filming with his cell phone. Instinct told him this moment was historic, whether it ended in triumph or in tragedy. Patricia's expression softened into a calm, almost maternal smile, the kind that had steadied terrified soldiers before battle. It sent a chill down Thompson's spine. "You're right about one thing, Your Honor," she said, her voice ringing with the truth of every battle she had survived. "You do know my kind. We are the people who refuse to bow to those who abuse power to cover their own fears." Thompson, shaking with rage, flung his gavel across the room, the heavy wood clattering on the marble floor. "Jail! Jail her for contempt." In that instant, Patricia felt a quiet surge of satisfaction. The trap had closed. Every hateful word, every petty insult, every unlawful command had been recorded in full detail, beyond dispute. What Thompson did not yet realize was that his downfall had just been sealed by the very act of trying to humiliate her. The judge's act of raw authoritarianism was being broadcast live to 3 major civil rights organizations, all standing by for precisely this moment. What Thompson didn't know was that his vile outburst had just been recorded in crystal clear high definition, and in the next few minutes, his 27-year career would begin to collapse under the gaze of millions who would remember the name General Patricia Washington for a long, long time. Officer Rodriguez stood frozen for 3 more seconds, eyes conflicted, before he finally stepped forward toward Patricia. His hands trembled as he reached for the handcuffs. "General, I'm sorry. Orders are orders," he stammered. Patricia nodded gently, calm as a mountain. "I understand, soldier. You're just following your chain of command," she said, extending her wrists without hesitation. Thompson watched, his thin lips curling with smug delight. Finally, the arrogant woman was submitting, put back in what he saw as her proper place. "That's the proper hierarchy," he sneered to his clerk. He had no clue that for the past 6 months, Patricia had meticulously built a damning dossier on his courtroom, 23 separate cases involving black veterans, each tried far more harshly than identical cases with white defendants. Every disproportionate sentence, every racially loaded comment, every flash of disdain had been recorded, categorized, and quietly relayed to retired Colonel James Mitchell, her old mentor turned civil rights attorney. As the handcuffs clicked shut around her wrists, Patricia felt a quiet thrill of triumph. She remembered what Mitchell had told her just days earlier. "Patty," he said over the phone, using the old nickname from her West Point days, "if this judge is half the bigot you think he is, a public confrontation will be a Christmas gift. Men like him always expose themselves when they believe they're untouchable." Thompson stood dramatically from his chair, savoring the spectacle. "Let this serve as a lesson," he declared pompously, "that no matter how many shiny medals you pin on your chest, in this courtroom, I am the authority." Veterans in the gallery stayed on their feet, refusing to sit even when ordered, their silent solidarity echoing through the chamber. But Patricia noticed details Thompson never would: the 3 discreet cell phones capturing every second, including one held by journalist David Chun in the second row. Even more telling was the soldier's widow, whispering urgently on her phone, no doubt reaching out to the network Patricia had organized weeks in advance. "The show is over," Thompson barked arrogantly to the gallery. "You may be seated." As Patricia was escorted toward the side door, she caught the gaze of a dignified, gray-haired woman in the back row, Dr. Rebecca Chun, one of the nation's most respected retired federal judges and mother to David Chun, the journalist. Dr. Chun had come at Patricia's personal invitation, officially observing the proceedings, but in truth, she was a witness of impeccable credibility, ready to testify when the time came. Rodriguez opened the holding cell door, clearly uneasy. "General, can I get you anything? Water?" "A lawyer." "Thank you, Rodriguez. My lawyer is on his way," Patricia replied, calm and sure. She quickly checked the tiny transmitter hidden in her military badge. The green indicator winked reassuringly. Every word, every movement, was being streamed directly to Mitchell's office across town, where a team of civil rights attorneys stood ready, habeas corpus petition in hand. Meanwhile, back in the courtroom, Thompson was gloating to the corporate lawyers beside him. "Did you see how I brought that so-called general to heel? 27 years on the bench, and I've learned you have to put certain people in their place," he boasted. Jennifer Walsh, one of the corporate attorneys, shifted uncomfortably. "Judge Thompson, perhaps we should rethink this," she ventured. "General Washington has a significant reputation." "Reputation?" Thompson laughed harshly. "She's a woman who doesn't know her place. Mark my words, by the end of today, she'll walk out of here with her tail between her legs, and this case will be dead in the water." He could never have imagined that just a few miles away, in the conference room of Mitchell and Associates, 12 monitors displayed a live feed of everything unfolding in that courtroom. 3 national civil rights groups, 5 media outlets, and 2 members of Congress had been alerted and were watching every second. Inside her cell, Patricia closed her eyes, centering herself with the quiet focus she had learned under fire. She remembered speaking with Mrs. Roberts, the young widow, weeks earlier. "General, I don't know what to do," the woman had wept. "They're denying my husband's benefits on some loophole. They claim he wasn't on active duty because he died 2 days after leaving the hospital." Patricia had dug into the paperwork and found a horrific pattern. 28 black soldiers' families, denied benefits on flimsy technicalities in 3 years. Every single case had passed through Thompson's courtroom. Identical cases involving white families were approved without question. Her vengeance would not be loud. It would be deliberate, meticulous, and unstoppable. For months she had built a web of contacts: veterans, civil rights advocates, legal strategists, journalists, and even 2 powerful members of Congress who had been waiting for evidence of systemic bias in the military justice system. 30 minutes later, when Rodriguez returned to the cell to announce that her lawyer had arrived, Patricia smiled calmly. It wasn't just Mitchell who had come, it was a full strike team, 2 investigative reporters, a federal prosecutor who had been searching for patterns of racial discrimination in local courts, and Dr. Rebecca Chun herself, carrying the Federal Observer's seal. Thompson, meanwhile, still basking in his sense of triumph, had no idea that he was about to be hit by a legal and political hurricane. As the courtroom doors swung open, Mitchell entered at the head of a procession that made Thompson's stomach clench. 2 federal prosecutors, 3 reporters, Dr. Chun carrying a sealed federal brief, and Congressman Williams, chairman of the House Civil Rights Committee, followed in his wake. Thompson's voice quavered despite himself. "What kind of circus is this?" he demanded, trying to recover his air of authority, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Patricia, watching through the small window of the holding cell, allowed herself the smallest of smiles. The enemy had just realized he was facing a general, and the battle had only begun. Beads of sweat glistened across Thompson's forehead as the walls seemed to close in around him. "This is a closed hearing," he protested weakly, voice cracking. Mitchell stepped forward, a calm, unyielding smile on his lips, a smile that didn't come close to reaching his eyes. "It was a closed hearing, Your Honor," he replied. "It just became a federal investigation." He motioned toward a poised woman carrying a professional-grade recording device. "This is Amanda Foster, with the Federal Justice Commission. She has a few questions about your judicial practices." For a moment, Thompson felt as though the floor had disappeared beneath him. Everywhere he looked, cell phones, official cameras, reporters, federal observers. Every angle of his meltdown had been captured in painfully high definition. His humiliation was on record for the entire nation to see. "Release General Washington immediately," ordered District Attorney Davis, flashing his badge. "And prepare to answer for 28 documented cases of systematic benefit denials against black military families over the last 3 years." Thompson's jaw hung slack. 28, how did they know the exact number? Panic seized him as he darted a desperate look at Jennifer Walsh, but the corporate lawyer was already whispering frantically into her phone, no doubt reporting to her higher UPS that their entire scheme had been blown wide open. Rodriguez all but ran over to Patricia, fumbling to release the cuffs, hands shaking. "General, I'm so sorry, I didn't know what to do." Patricia smiled softly, her bearing unshaken, adjusting her uniform with graceful precision. "You did exactly what you were supposed to do, soldier," she assured him. The Medal of Honor still rested perfectly on her chest, an unbroken symbol of honor and defiance. "This is a mistake," Thompson shrieked, though the note of desperation betrayed him. "She disrespected my authority. She refused a direct order." Foster stepped forward, switching on a professional recorder. "Judge Thompson," she announced evenly, "you are now under investigation for systematic violations of federal civil rights. Anything you say can and will be used against you." A hush fell over the entire room. Thompson looked around, seeking support, but saw only faces twisted in disgust, disappointment, and, perhaps most painful of all, pity. Mitchell opened his briefcase with practiced calm, drawing out a tablet. "General Washington spent 6 months documenting every slur, every lopsided ruling, every discriminatory word uttered in this court," Mitchell explained coolly. "We have 23 hours of video evidence, 87 pages of case notes, and witnesses from 17 separate cases." Thompson tried to rise, but his knees buckled and he slumped back into his chair. That's entrapment," he sputtered. "She set me up." Patricia took a measured step forward, her voice ringing with military authority as every veteran in the room unconsciously straightened to attention. "Your Honor, she declared, "I did not entrap you. I documented you. The only trap you walked into was one you built yourself with arrogance, cruelty, and prejudice." Foster turned on a portable speaker. "Let us hear some excerpts," she announced. The judge's own voice filled the courtroom, crackling through the speakers. "I know the kind of people you really are. This woman doesn't know her place in society. People like her, no matter how many medals you pin on your chest." With each replayed word, Thompson seemed to collapse further in his chair. Veterans in the gallery shook their heads in shame, some murmured quiet encouragement toward Patricia. Congressman Williams stepped up to a microphone, his voice unwavering. "On behalf of the Civil Rights Committee, I am ordering a federal investigation into the discriminatory practices of this courtroom. Every case tried by Judge Thompson over the past 5 years will be reviewed." Thompson's face blanched. "You can't destroy 27 years of service because of a misunderstanding," he begged, the last vestiges of his power draining away. Patricia walked toward him, stopping just inches from the bench. She met his eyes steadily, unmoved. "Your Honor," she said, her tone almost sorrowful, "I spent 23 years defending this country's values. You spent 27 years betraying them. The difference between us is that I never forgot public service is a privilege, not an excuse to humiliate those most in need." Foster switched off her device and nodded to the bailiff. "Judge Thompson, you are hereby suspended from all judicial duties, effective immediately," she declared. "A federal judge will take over these proceedings pending the investigation." As Thompson was led away, red-faced and wobbling on unsteady legs, Patricia remained serenely composed. 28 military families would finally see justice, and a system that had let them down would never again operate unchecked. Camera flashes immortalized Thompson's spectacular fall. But even in the swirl of attention, Patricia wondered how many other Thompsons were still hiding in America's institutions and how one determined woman with courage, patience, and a hidden camera had taken down an empire of prejudice. 6 months later, Patricia walked confidently through the gleaming halls of the Pentagon, a new rank plate by her door reading Deputy Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Her nomination had sailed through the Senate in a rare unanimous vote, her Medal of Honor now a dual symbol of valor in battle and moral courage at home. Across town, Thompson's fate could not have been more different. Publicly disgraced, stripped of his law license, and forced to sell his home to pay the settlements to the families he had systematically harmed, he now worked the night shift as a mall security guard, barely scraping by. At the courthouse, Rodriguez, newly promoted to chief of security, greeted Patricia during a follow-up visit. "General Washington," he said respectfully, "you didn't just save those families. You saved all of us who watched you stand tall that day." The reforms set off by Patricia's recordings had reshaped the entire local court system. 17 judges removed. 143 cases reopened. A new nationwide oversight protocol established to catch judicial racism before it could flourish again. At an awards ceremony honoring her courage, Mrs. Roberts, the soldier's widow, embraced Patricia with tearful gratitude. "My husband can finally rest," she said, voice breaking. "Our daughter can go to medical school, just like he always wanted." Mitchell, now the chief counsel for the National Veterans Rights Commission, stood proudly beside his former protege. "Patty," he told her with a grin, "you turned one moment of public humiliation into a national revolution. That's leadership." Congressman Williams addressed the nation in his speech. "General Washington showed us," he said, "that true strength is not silencing injustice, but exposing it and turning it into lasting change." Far away, in a dingy one-bedroom apartment with a broken television, Thompson watched the awards broadcast, eyes red with anger and regret. On the screen, Patricia received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, her face serene, her medal gleaming as the nation cheered. Dr. Rebecca Chun, who had witnessed every step of Patricia's battle, now headed the newly formed National Judicial Monitoring Institute, created precisely to prevent another Thompson. Patricia reminded us, Dr. Chun told a reporter, that documenting injustice is the first step to ending it. Eradicating it, Dr. Rebecca Chun declared during her inauguration as the head of the new National Judicial Monitoring Institute. David Chun, the journalist whose quiet cell phone recording had captured Thompson's public meltdown, was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for his powerful investigative series on systemic racism in the American judiciary. In every acceptance speech, he credited Patricia as the force that had made it all possible. David's career soared. He was soon hired as a national correspondent for one of the biggest television networks in the country. Jennifer Walsh, the former corporate lawyer who had once tried to protect the system that harmed military families, left her firm in disgrace. Inspired by Patricia, she opened her own practice, this time defending veterans and their families from discrimination. She showed me, Jennifer later said in an interview, that it doesn't matter which side you start on. What matters is which side you stand on once the truth comes out. Patricia had learned a profound truth during her months of carefully orchestrated preparation: the greatest revenge is not destroying those who harmed you personally, but transforming your own pain into fuel that protects thousands of others from ever suffering the same injustice. During her inauguration speech as Deputy Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Patricia spoke directly into the cameras, her voice calm yet commanding. "There are people who use power to humiliate the vulnerable," she said. "And there are people who turn their own vulnerability into power to protect those who come after them. The choice has always been ours." The 28 military families whose benefits Thompson had denied did not just have their cases overturned, they received full compensation, their children's education funded, and their mortgages paid off. Their stories of resilience and triumph spread across their communities like a spark of hope. Rodriguez, who had once been ordered to handcuff Patricia, now proudly served as chief of security for the new federal court. He was married with twins, and had named his daughter after the general who had changed his life. "I want her to grow up knowing that dignity is something no one can ever take from you," he explained. "Only you can give it away." As for Thompson, at 62, he worked night shifts alone, patrolling the silent corridors of a shopping mall. His only companions were the echoes of his own footsteps and the memory of how a 27-year career had collapsed in less than an hour, destroyed by his own arrogance caught on camera. His wife had divorced him 6 months after the scandal, taking what little remained of his assets. Former colleagues crossed the street to avoid him, and even the golf club cancelled his lifetime membership. His fall was absolute: professional, social, financial, personal. Amanda Foster, the federal investigator who had confronted him, now led a national task force to identify and dismantle systemic discrimination in the American courts. "The Thompson case proved something critical," she said in a CNN interview. "Simple technology and individual courage can tear down decades of institutionalized injustice." Patricia's story became a required case study at military academies and law schools across the nation. Students learned how one determined woman, armed with patience and strategic intelligence, turned her personal humiliation into a systemic revolution. During a lecture at Harvard, a student asked Patricia what her proudest moment had been. She paused, smiling serenely. "It wasn't seeing Thompson removed," she said. It was reading a letter from a young black female veteran who told me she finally felt safe to report discrimination because she knew someone would believe her. That was the lesson she carried. When faced with injustice, you have two choices: surrender and accept the role of victim, or use your dignity, patience, and intelligence to transform your pain into a force that protects countless others. Patricia had chosen the second path, and the result was not only personal vindication, but a movement that permanently changed how veterans were treated in the American justice system. 5 years later, Thompson saw Patricia's face on the cover of Time magazine as Person of the Year. The headline read, "A Medal for Courage and a Legacy for Justice." Only then did Thompson grasp the full scope of his mistake. He had tried to humiliate a woman for wearing a medal that represented bravery and sacrifice, but instead he had created an even more powerful symbol of justice and moral determination. In an exclusive interview, Patricia reflected, "Thompson thought he was putting me in my place," she said quietly. "But in reality, he helped me find my true purpose." Sometimes our worst enemies are our best teachers. They show us exactly the kind of person we never want to become. Meanwhile, the corporation that had once hired Jennifer Walsh to block veterans' benefits was itself destroyed in a $200 million class action lawsuit. The company filed for bankruptcy, its executives barred from practicing law ever again. If this story of dignity, courage, and transformation moved you, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more true stories of people who turned their lowest defeats into their most inspiring victories. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about tearing others down, it's about living well enough to see your oppressors crumble under the weight of their own choices, while you build a legacy that changes the world for generations to come.